generally used as a material.
Alright, so here is the Dragon's Dogma 2 review. Before we get into the review, I want to have a little introduction here explaining how the review is going to go. First things first, no spoilers. Everything that you're going to see is either from the first hour, like this footage right here is from the first hour of the game, or if it's not from the first hour of the game, it's going to be random encounter stuff only. So pretty much stuff that could potentially never even happen in your game. It's completely random encounters. No scripted stuff. So yeah, thanks to Capcom for giving me the review code, because here's the thing. This review is being made by someone who has not played the first game. I have not played the first game. And honestly, I wasn't really interested in the game at all. But I recently, a few months ago, became a Capcom creator, and that allows me to get games for free and pretty much try out games that I wouldn't have played before. Even though I love Capcom, that's why I wanted to become a Capcom creator in the first place. I just never played the first game, and I wasn't super interested. But I figured, since I have the privilege to be able to do this stuff, I might as well just take advantage of it and not let that go to waste. So, what I can say is that I'm pleasantly surprised. Yeah, this game is very good. But there are a lot of problems holding this game back. And here's the funny thing. Even with these problems, I can still see this game being nominated for Game of the Year. However, there are some very strange problems with this game. And we're just going to start off with the problems first before we go into the in-depth review of everything else on the game. So let's get started with the cons.
Claim the throne, yet not all claim it.
So the cons of this game are really, really weird. I'm sure, as you all know by now, on Xbox Series X and PS5, this is the PS5 version, by the way, the game runs at 30 FPS. Now, usually it runs at about 40 FPS, maybe 45, but most of the time you're getting around 40 FPS, and when you're in combat, you're getting 30 FPS, and when you're in cities, you're getting 30 FPS, sometimes even slightly below 30 FPS. They are adding a feature to lock the game to 30 FPS on consoles. However, this is the very first game that I've ever played since the PS5 released that is in 30 FPS. This is the first game I've ever played. I know other games have existed, but I didn't play them. This is the first game I've ever played where the game is 30 FPS. So for me personally, I understand that the frames, changing so much could be a problem. But I really appreciate that it's not locked to 30 FPS. Because, it does reach 40 a lot of the time. And that little difference really helps, because I really hate 30 FPS. So that just really helps. But if the changes bother you, they're going to add in an option later to lock it to 30 FPS. But I'm still counting it as a con because, number one, in my personal opinion, there's just no reason why this game shouldn't be 60 FPS, and we're going to get into why. So, they claim that the reason the game is in 60 FPS is because the NPCs in this game are very complicated. They're very smart. This game has some of the smartest NPCs you will ever see in a video game, including the ones that aren't even in your party, just random ones you'll find on the city. They are truly alive, and they're very complicated, and there's tons of them. The city is very populated. So because of that, the game runs at a lower frame rate, because there's just so much happening. Well, that didn't really make sense to me, because yes, all those claims are true. The NPCs are extremely smart, extremely detailed. There's no lies there. No lies there at all. But this game has some of the worst render distance I've ever seen for NPCs. 99% of the time, when you enter a place with a lot of NPCs, they're going to appear right in front of you. I'm talking, they're gonna appear so close to you that you're gonna be able to talk to them. That's how close they are. Like, literally just fade in out of thin air. Obviously, every game has to do that, right? Every game has to pretty much, you know, render in the NPCs as you get close to them. But I don't understand why this game is 30 FPS if you literally have to, like, you are seeing these NPCs render in literally from talking distance. So that just doesn't really make sense to me, because I'm not no game development expert. But what's the point of having this super complex system that's so complex that it holds the entire game down to, you know, slightly above 30 FPS? But when you actually get into a highly populated area, these NPCs aren't just, you know, you aren't just seeing them from a mile away. No, they are literally fading in as you get close to the city. And they're fading in directly in front of you. Like, no exaggeration. This isn't even like some rare glitch or rare occurrence. This literally happens every single time. Every single time you enter in a city area, you will literally see them just fade in. So it's just very weird to me. Because, here, like I said, they're not lying about the NPCs being complex. They're not. You know, your pawns are super complex. Everything is super complex. But it's just really weird to me, because I've never seen a system like this where the system is so complicated that it weighs down the frame rate. However, you are literally watching these guys spawn right in front of you. It's not like they're always in the world, they're always there even when you're not looking at them. That can't be the case, because you're literally watching them spawn in talking distance from you. So that's one of the problems that I have with this game. It doesn't really take away from the game at all. To me, it just makes it seem more confusing on why the game runs at a low frame rate. I don't know. Another con of the game we're going to get into is the absolute disastrous launch that is the PC version. I'm on the PS5 version, so I didn't have any of these problems. However, as of the time of me recording this video, the PS5 version is usually better than the PC version. The PC version can drop below 30 FPS on a lot of systems. On a lot of systems, the game doesn't even start. You get into the main menu, it crashes right away. The PC version is a disaster from what I'm hearing. And even though the PS5 version runs at a low frame rate, unless you have a NASA computer, chances are that the PS5 version will run better than the PC version. As of right now. They've already said they're going to fix a lot of this. They're going to fix all of this. They're going to make the game run better on PC and PS5. They already said all this. But it doesn't matter if they're going to fix it, because the game came out and the game cost $70, right? The game is out. People paid money for it. So, yes, it is nice that they're going to fix it, but it shouldn't have been this way in the first place. Another con of the game is you can't even create a second save file. So essentially, you can only have one character. If you want to start another game, another save file, you have to completely delete your main save file through your like system storage or whatever. Again, they did say that they're going to add multiple. Actually, I don't even know if they said they're going to add multiple save files. They only said they're going to add a new game option, because there is not a new game option in the game. You cannot start a new game. The only way to start a new game is to go into your system storage and delete your save file. You cannot start a new game. For me, that does not personally affect me because in, you know, Cyberpunk and the Dark Souls games, I only have one character and I only play one character. I don't really care about making multiple characters or restarting, but obviously that is a big problem for a lot of people, so I can't just ignore that. Other than that, I think that concludes the cons section. So now the gameplay is going to switch. We're going to be getting into combat, stuff like that. So the footage is going to be from later on in the game. But, like I said, the footage is only going to be random encounters only. No scripted stuff, no story stuff. So, here we go. Alright, so the combat system is super in-depth. Pretty much the combat system focuses on balance, meaning your enemy's stance, knocking them over. So as you can see, this giant enemy right here, I punched him in the face, stunned him right there. This allows us to attack his legs and set him off balance. No matter what size the enemy is, that is pretty much the main goal. You want to knock them off balance. Like right here, he's stumbling a bit. The main goal is to knock them off balance so you can hit your finisher heavy attack on them with your class. You can also, the bigger enemies, you can make them stumble, fall over, stuff like that. That's the main focus of the gameplay. You can also climb the enemies, Shadow of the Colossus style, if they're bigger than you, and you can literally climb to any part of them that you want and then attack that part specifically. As you can see, we knocked him off balance and he stumbled, hit his face on a rock, and got knocked out. Super cool, super in-depth. Really fun combat system, because I don't think there's ever been a combat system that focuses on knocking your opponent off balance. And one thing I'll say is, in a video game ever, I have never seen enemies interact with the environment in the way that they do. As you saw, he tripped, hit his face on a tree, but he didn't clip through the tree. In every other video game ever, he would clip through the tree and fall on the floor. No, he hit his face on the tree and slumped down the tree. That's how the game works. Everything interacts with the environment like that. You don't just clip through walls, you know, everything's super realistic. You can pick up objects that are, you know, your size, objects that you would be able to carry, and you can throw them. You can pick up your teammates and throw them. You can pick up enemies and throw them. Obviously, they have to be, you know, your size. I can't pick up the Cyclops and throw him, but I can hit him in the leg like that, knock him off balance into a rock. So, super cool. Combat system is great. As you can see, I'm using the Greatsword subclass here, or vocation they're called. Not the greatest, because this is my first time using it, so I was really bad with managing the stamina because it was harder to use. But I did a lot of damage. Every class has its own weapon, you know. Fighter has the sword and shield. Sorcerer has, there's different types of sorcerer classes that do different types of spells. There's the great sword class. There's the spear class. It's like a magic class. There's a trickster class where you can, like, trick the enemies. You can, like, I haven't used that one, to be honest, but there's a lot of classes. There's a thief class, there's a bow class. All of them have their own weapons and skills. And the skills in this game are not, oh, you do 0.5% more damage to ice enemies. No, every skill in this game gives you a new move, something new that you can do. For example, the fighter class gets a skill that lets him land on his shield and do less damage, or take less fall damage. Super cool. All the pawns have their own classes, the same classes as you, but you can give them the class that you want. You have one pawn that you create in the character creator, and that pawn stays with you for the whole game. You can customize that one, change his class, his or her class. And then the other two pawns are pawns that you hire throughout the game from other players, stuff like that. So you can hire other people's pawns that they made to your liking, whatever class you need, you can hire them. But you can't customize them because they are other people's pawns. So You know, if they're a certain class, you can't change their class, because that's the class that their master made them, right? So you have to go and find the pawn that suits the class that you need. Relatively easy. It's not hard. There's a whole system for getting pawns. It's easy, but the only pawn that you can change to your liking is the one that you created. So yeah, super cool. Let's get into the exploration, I guess, because that's pretty much... You're doing two things, mainly. Combat and exploration. That's pretty much the whole game right there. Those are the two things you're doing. So, exploration. So the exploration is very cool, but also very frustrating at times, because exploration is super detailed. There's like... It's great, right? If you like exploring in games, you're not going to be disappointed. There's a lot of paths. The map is really big. There's a lot of little caves and stuff that have loot in them. The exploration is really good. However, my one complaint with the exploration, and I didn't want to put this in the cons section because this is personal. This isn't objectively anything wrong with the game. This is just my personal feelings. So this is why I didn't put this in the cons section. And I'm not going to be... taking this into factor when I score the game, because this, like I said, this is just my opinion. But I strongly dislike, and this isn't just Dragon's Dogma 2, this is a lot of games, when you go down a path, right, and you think that this is the correct path that you should be going. Turns out it's not the right path, and essentially you have to backtrack and go all the way around a mountain or a cliff and go down the right path. A lot of games have this, you know. If you go down the wrong path, you're going to have to walk back and go around, you know, this mountain or this cliff or whatever. But with Dragon's Dogma, it doesn't really make sense to me that you have to do that, because there's this in-depth climbing system that you can use on enemies. But you can't use the climbing system to climb anything except enemies. And that's really weird to me. It bothered me because there's a lot... The only way you can travel in this game is on foot. If you need to go somewhere, you have to walk there, right? You can fast travel with an ox cart, but that's only going to take you to specific locations, you know? So, you have to walk to places. And there's nothing wrong with that. There are plenty of games like that. But it's always a really big pet peeve of mine. What you're watching right here, where I was looking for an area, and I was trying to find this area, I had to walk all the way back. You're not seeing this. This took me about 20 minutes to get to this spot, because I didn't see the bridge, right? And I'm trying to get to a cave. So, literally, I had to walk all the way down, and then I walked all the way back up, and then you saw me walk back down and stand at that wall for a little bit. Then I walked back to the bridge, and then I found where I was going. All of this could have been avoided if I could have just scaled the side of the mountain by climbing it. Again, the climbing system is super in-depth. Right here, I spot a bunch of loot on this rock. A bunch of loot on this rock. You can't climb the rock. So I figured, let me try throwing a pawn up there and having them loot it. Unfortunately, she did not loot it. But, so... I'm assuming the only way to get up there is by having the sorcerer class that lets you fly, because you can, like, levitate. But it doesn't make no sense that I can't use the climbing system to climb up this. You know, Genshin has a climbing system. I believe the new Zelda games have a climbing system. I just don't understand why you can't climb stuff in this game, because, again, there's a super in-depth climbing system for the combat, but not for the exploration. I don't want to mark this as a con, because this is just my opinion, right? But it does bother me. But other than that, everything that you want from exploration is here, you know, finding plants or whatever, caves, you know, secret areas. It's all there, right? It's all there. It's as good as it can be. So, with that being said, I believe that covers the gameplay, right? That's pretty much all you're doing. 95% of the time in this game, you're either fighting something or walking around. I just wish that walking around was a little less tedious by just allowing you to climb over things. However, that's just my opinion. we're going to move on to the next part of the review, the visuals and audio.
Allow me to open your chest.
So, excuse this clip right here. I have HDR on for this clip, so it might look a little worse depending on how you're watching it. I'm sorry. But yeah, audio and visuals. As you can hear, probably, it sounds amazing. The music is amazing. The sound effects are amazing. This is a random encounter of a griffin flying into two cyclops, and they're just absolutely pounding this guy. So yeah, audio, visual, both great. I don't really feel like there's much to say because the game looks beautiful, right? The game is absolutely amazing looking. There are some moments in this game where I just had to stop and stare. Like, there was this one moment where I was next to the ocean on top of a castle, and the sun was setting. It was just absolutely amazing looking. Game looks amazing, right? But, I don't think it looks better than some other games. And the other games that look better were 60 FPS. I understand graphics is not entirely the reason why a game runs bad. But I will say there have been games that have come out throughout the PS5 generation that have looked better than this game and were 60 FPS, sometimes even higher than 60 FPS. But I will say though, this game looks amazing and it's in 4K. So the PS5 version is in 4K. I don't believe it's native 4K, but it is 4K. So it just looks really good. Really good looking game. No complaints. Music is amazing. I wish I knew more about it, but I don't want to like say anything false. But the music sounds a lot like Monster Hunter, so I wonder if it's the same person. I actually don't know who composed the music. If not, it's still very good. It doesn't really matter who made it, honestly. It's just amazing, to be honest. Music's great. It fits the game perfectly. Whether you're exploring, whether you're in a town, or whether you're in a fight, it's perfect. Combined with, you know, the way the game looks, the map, the way the abilities look. They look amazing, too. The enemy abilities look amazing. The particle effects are great. Although they will definitely drop your frame rate. Yeah, game looks great. Literally no complaints. Beautiful game. And it will remain beautiful for a very long time. I don't think this game will age poorly in terms of graphics. So yeah, I don't know what else there is to cover. That is combat, exploration, the cons of the game, the audio and visual. The story is definitely a little complicated, for sure, but I don't want to give the story its own section because I just find story hard to talk about when, you know, reviewing something and try not to spoil it. But I will say is that the dialogue is pretty good, although it does kind of annoy you sometimes when they use these old words or what, I don't know. They use the same words a lot, like pray. They say pray so many times. Whatever, it is what it is, but the actual voice acting I had no problem with. There's some really cool characters in this game. Well, it's not really a spoiler. The dragon sounds pretty cool, right? I mean, you hear him talk very early on. He sounds pretty cool. Overall, I have no complaints about the story, but I don't want to talk about it too much because there is a story, obviously, and it is pretty in-depth. So yeah, I guess I'm going to finish up the review. So overall, game has some annoying cons. The microtransactions I'm not even going to talk about because it's just people blowing things out of proportion. There wasn't a single moment in this game where I felt I had to buy a microtransaction at all. Matter of fact, you're kind of getting scammed if you buy a microtransaction because there's just no need to buy any of them. Yeah, I had a great time. I beat the game in 15 hours. 16 hours. But I didn't really do any of the side stuff. I just wanted to, you know, experience the game, and then so I can get the review out. So yeah, what I can say is that me beating the game, I've probably only experienced maybe like 30 or 40% of the actual game in 16 hours. Because there's definitely a lot that I didn't do, but again, I just wanted to be able to experience it from start to finish before I made my review. I really have nothing bad to say about the game other than the PC port is horrendous. There's some very odd choices with the frame rate. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give this game an 8 out of 10. Because I genuinely can't really think about any problems that this game has besides the technical problems. This game, in reality, it is a 10 out of 10. But I just don't like it when games release with so many problems. You know, even though my game has been relatively good because I'm on the PS5 version, so that does seem to be the best version at the moment. It should run at 60 FPS. You should be able to start a new game. Just very stupid things right there, right? And I can't give the game a perfect score because by definition, those things right there do not make the game perfect. Even though the game itself is pretty close to perfect, it's just that those technical difficulties are just very dumb. They just should not be a problem, especially for a $70 game. But overall, you know, the game is worth every penny. Because like I said, I beat the game in 16 hours, and that was just me going straight for the main story. I did maybe 1 or 2 side quests, if that. And I can confidently say I've barely experienced the game with all those hours. So I'm probably going to be going in for a more in-depth playthrough. But I just wanted to be able to get the review out. I highly recommend the game. The game is no doubt a 10 out of 10 game. It's just that these technical problems are holding it back. But the actual contents within the game are 10 out of 10 Game of the Year worthy. If you're a fan of RPGs, this game's a no-brainer. It's one of the best ones I've ever played. For sure. And I mean, I really don't know what else to say. I just highly recommend the game. Don't pay attention to the bad press. It's mostly just invalid criticism on the microtransactions because they really aren't a problem at all. I mean, like they're kind of useless, honestly. But I will say the valid criticisms really come down to the technical issues with the game. But yeah. This review was a little longer than I expected, but I really wanted to go in depth because I've been given this opportunity, you know, and I've been given this game, and it allowed me to experience this game, and I wasn't gonna buy it regardless, right? So I'm glad that I was given this game with the privilege that I have with being a Capcom creator, because I would have missed out on this, and that would have sucked. Missing out on this game would have sucked. I can't lie to you. So I'm glad that I was given this opportunity. So even though the video is a little long, I want to make sure I'm super in-depth. I cover everything that I want to cover. I hope I covered everything. There's a lot to talk about with this game. But I hope I got the main point of everything across. Yeah. Like, subscribe, and I highly recommend the game. Peace.